Right, 30 July 2024, and today I've got quite a number of stories to cover. And as you know, we are right in the middle of the SADC Summit or the SADC events. So I'm going to be covering 2 times a day, every day, until the end of the SADC Summit. And I hope that this will be something that is interesting to you and all the people that follow Gambakwe Media. So today I'm going to quickly run through some stories from Zimbabwe, and then I'm going to run through a number of SADC stories. So let me start with what is in the Herald newspaper. And I think this is going to be quite an interesting story. And I want to spend a bit of time on the story of the diplomatic issues that have arisen between Zimbabwe and the US Embassy. So this is to do with a hit and run accident that took place some time ago. And it says on June 3, the second secretary of the US Embassy, Mr. Eric Kimpton, ran over a girl, Ruvarashe Takamanya, in Dema, and left the country within 24 hours after the US Embassy cited or invoked diplomatic immunity. So this is the story that I think is going to be quite important over the next few months. So, you know, the Zimbabwe government is going to try to make a lot out of this story. But I've got some views on what should happen here, because obviously we have to balance the interests of the family who lost the girl, 11-year-old Ruvarashe Takamanya, and also the process. What is the process in such a situation? And then what should happen next? So I want to start by saying, obviously, this is a very difficult case. And what normally happens is when a diplomat is involved in an accident, and this is not the first time, it has happened before. What normally happens is that if a diplomat is involved in an accident or is involved in a situation where they would normally have to go to jail, they would obviously not go to jail in the country where they are a diplomat. They would have to either go back to their own home country and be tried there, or the embassy will have to waiver the diplomatic immunity and let them be tried in that country, which is very rare. It normally doesn't happen. So in this particular case, I think there needs to be a balance. And Mr. Eric Kimpton here will have to deal with the issue from his own personal level. That is what I think should happen here, because he's gone for counseling and he has left Zimbabwe under diplomatic immunity with his family. And I want to just give you what has happened a few years ago with a friend of mine. So a friend of mine was in Mozambique and he was driving. So I won't mention any names. And he says, as he was driving, there's tall grass on the left and tall grass on the right. And out of the blue, a little child came running across from nowhere. You know that grass in Mozambique is very tall. So a little girl or a little boy, I don't know whether it was a boy or a girl, came running from the left and went straight into the road. Before he knew it, it ran over the child. And he was in the middle of nowhere in Mozambique. And he decided that it was not safe for him to stop. So he didn't stop. And he left and went where he was going. He obviously passed back on the same way back home. He never stopped, never reported the case to the police. And that was the end of the whole thing to him. However, he says after a few years, strange things started to happen. And I don't want to go into superstitious stuff here. All I can say to you is, normally when you are involved in a hit and run accident, there are certain things that you need to do with the family members so that you don't end up in the situation where this young man that I'm talking about was in. He says he's tracing back some of the things that were happening to him to that accident. So when you're involved in an accident in Africa, you need to approach the family members of the person that was involved in the accident with you. And there are certain things you need to do. So normally you would need to consult people who know African culture, and then they will help you with that situation. Otherwise, the impact on the long run to you, not to an embassy or anything, that thing is going to follow you around. Some people who have been unfortunate have had a lot of other things happening to themselves, which I won't deal with here. So let me see what happened here after the accident. The police who attended the scene were told that Mr. Kimpton needed a period to rest, but we later told him he was no longer in the country. Yeah, so that is what I have here. I don't see. He issued a statement. So Mr. Kimpton, under the shield of diplomatic immunity, so in his warned and cautioned statement, he had informed the police that he would return to Zimbabwe after 2 weeks. He's yet to return. So this is the story. I don't want to avoid certain stories. So I've given you the story that is there. You can go check out the story in the Herald newspaper. Very difficult story for me to read for many reasons. Right, so let's go to what I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to talk about SADC. So SADC Summit has now been announced. So the SADC Summit is going to be in Zimbabwe, and it's now only going to take place over 1 day. So you know SADC was supposed to be in Zimbabwe between the 17th and the 20th. It's now only going to happen on the 17th. This is because the presidents have got nowhere to sleep. So most presidents are only going to be in Zimbabwe. They'll fly in the morning, and they're going to leave the very same day. So SADC has made the announcement. Mnangagwa is going to be the chairperson of SADC. They have made the announcement formally. It's in the communique, and they are not going to discuss the SEOM report. So there is not going to be any discussion over the SEOM report. That is how it is, and that is the announcement by SADC. There's going to be a number of events starting this week. So it's going to be a continuous set of events. So from the 8th to the 11th, there's going to be the senior officials and finance committee meeting. 13th to 14th, there's going to be the SADC Council of Ministers meeting. And from the 14th of August, we're going to have the SADC Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa. August 15, we're going to have the SADC public lecture at the University of Zimbabwe. And then on the 16th, we're going to have the SADC Troika Ministerial Committee and SADC Organ Troika Summit. That is on the 16th. Then on the 17th, we're going to have the Summit of the Head of States. And then on the 18th, there's going to be a visit to the Geopomona Waste Management and Museum of African Liberation. So you can clearly see that the heads of states are only going to be in Zimbabwe on the 17th. They're no longer going to sleep in Zimbabwe because there's nowhere for the presidents to sleep. It's a mess what has happened in Zimbabwe. Now, let's quickly look at other stories. I want to take you through interesting stories that have taken place all over Africa. So let's start with what's happening in South Africa. So what you are looking at here is 95 Libyans who were arrested in South Africa. They were arrested at a security training center in Mpumalanga. And they have now said that they were brought to South Africa by a tycoon in Libya. However, local reports have linked them to the Libyan general, Khalifa Haftar. And this is in the newspapers today. And you know that Khalifa Haftar is the father of Saddam Haftar, who is seen as the next, or the person who's coming next in Libya. And they say when they were brought to South Africa, they were told that they'll be doing security work, and they were not told that they are going to be trained in any kind of special forces training. So the South Africans have now charged them with falsification of the visa application, and they're now going to keep them in jail at Barberton. Let me see if that is the correct prison. Barberton, that's where they're going to keep them. And they want to see if they can add other charges to these people who are feared to belong to the 2020 group, which is part of the Tariq bin Ziyad Brigade, and obviously under Libyan Army Commander Khalifa Haftar. And this group is said to have been connected to an Irish security company and was doing special forces training. So they've been put now to Barberton Correctional Services, a jail. They used to be the police stations, but they are now at Barberton Correctional Services. So that is what is happening with the Libyans. Then let's look at what has happened with the burial of Liberation War veterans. Permanent Secretary Clive Mphambela was buried yesterday, and he died after an accident which happened on his way to Masvingo. He was going to attend a function when he had an accident. He crashed into a stationary car and was in a coma since Saturday. Then he passed on. And this is very sad because he used to be a journalist at the Zimbabwe Independent newspaper. So he's passed away and he was buried. You can check out information, and there are many, many messages of condolences, including from Tuli Ngube here. He used to work in this ministry for 4 years. That is what they have said about Clive Mphambela. I personally don't know Clive myself, or do not know him, but I know other family members. So now let's go to other stories very quickly. I'm going to run through a number of stories here, and I want to start with a story from, again, South Africa, and then I want to link it to a story in Zimbabwe. So there is gas exploration taking place in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. However, Total Energies have said they're pulling out of gas exploration in South Africa because it's too difficult. So they've said that there is no prospect of money being made from gas exploration in South Africa. So they're going to be pulling out. And when you pull out of such a project, you have to give up your shares. So you no longer own the shares, you give back to other partners in the project. So Total Energies have just abandoned the South African gas exploration, and Africa Energy Corporation of Canada, which is based in Toronto, is going to take over the remaining shares. And the South African government is hoping that another investor is going to come, because Total Energies had 45% of the shares. African Energy Corporation is going to remain as a shareholder, but they only own 10% of the shares. So what is going to happen is that an investor is going to be needed. A number of gas projects have started in South Africa, including one in the Southern Cape. However, that project has been abandoned after the gas deposits ran out. Now, I want to link this for you with Zimbabwe. The Mutapa Fund of Zimbabwe is going to be investing $5 million into a gas exploration project with Invictus Energy. And this is at Kabora Basa and at Mukuyu. And the reason why the Mutapa has to invest here is obviously because they can't find international investors, and they're in partnership with Mangwana Capital. And Mangwana Capital is got the managing director here called, I think it's called Ben Mbanga. So if you want to find out more about this, you can check it out. I do not know who is Ben Mbanga. And my original understanding was that they did not find any oil. So I don't know what has happened and why Mutapa is now investing $5 million. And this is going to be through a secondary listing at the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So you can check it out. This is very interesting. I do not know if this is where the Zimbabwe government should be spending the money, and also Mutapa. My belief is that money should be spent on tourism. I believe that the tourism assets of Zimbabwe, if we were to fix the infrastructure around traveling around Zimbabwe, and also if you look at the SDI projects that I was talking about last night, that is where you need to spend your money, improve transport between various centers in Harare, fix a high-speed railway line. That is what I would do in Zimbabwe. I would put a high-speed railway line between Victoria Falls and Beira. If you do that and connect Vic Falls, you connect Kariba, you connect Lusaka, and you go and connect with Beira, and then probably Harare and all that way. That would be an amazing project that can actually make money compared to this oil and gas exploration at Mukuyu and at Kabura Basa. I don't think this is long running. And I believe that this is probably money that is going to be probably wasted. If I have to say, it's going to be wasted. Now, let me go to another story. And this is an interesting story. Ariston Holdings. So I'm going to display some figures here. Ariston Holdings is a massive Zimbabwean company. It's in the agricultural sector. They do tea, macadamia, potatoes, poultry, and what they've said is they've issued their statement today. And they've said that the ZIG has massively affected their operations because of low and constrained liquidity. So people cannot buy. And if you look at what has happened with Ariston, so let me turn this camera off. So what has happened with Ariston is that in terms of production in the third quarter, they've had a massive drop in terms of tea. They've had an increase in terms of macadamia, and poultry has also improved. However, the problem is that people cannot buy. People are unable to buy because of lack of ZIG. And the lack of ZIG has resulted in them obviously having issues. They've had massive issues. And this is something that needs to be addressed. The lack of ZIG cash is affecting many, many companies. And Ariston have only been saved because they bought a new X-ray machine, which is able to sort macadamia into different sizes. So macadamia, a bigger size, the smaller size, if you separate them, it means now you can sell at a higher quality and also at a higher price. So you take the bigger macadamias, you sell them at a higher price, and the smaller macadamias is a smaller price. And you can crush the ones which are not so high quality into pulp and so forth. I think this is something very important. Tuli Ngube and the guys in the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, they need to listen to what is being said by the market. The shortage of ZIG is a massive problem. It needs to be addressed as soon as possible. I now want to go to some stories here. Let's look at entertainment stories. So today, the H Metro newspaper has got a story that I won't read. You can go there and read. I don't like reading such stories. So you can go there and read it. There's some considerations I have to make when I publish stories here on Gambakwe, because I run on certain platforms. And pane vanhu vakasimba vakasimba vekuti kana ndikavataura nevavo zvinogona kundiaffecta kwakawanda. But some things I don't read them because I've got my own views and I don't want to perpetuate my views on other people. Now let's go to Baba Harare. Baba Harare, I like talking about Baba Harare because from my village to Baba Harare's village, you can walk for less than 5 minutes. So people wondering why does Gambakwe talk about Baba Harare? He is very close to my village. It's a walking distance. So Baba Harare said it's not true that he recently got married, and it's not true that his wife is the one that made him change into a Christian. So he says he became a Christian when he traveled to Australia. I think that was in April. But it's not because of his wife. He has dissolved his band. He has told everyone to leave, and he's now operating solo. He's got a new album being launched this week. In fact, I think it's on Sunday, and he's gonna be at 7 Arts Theatre, if I'm not mistaken. 7 Arts Theatre near Makandiwa, and it. So he's going to be over there, and he's going to be launching with Mahendere, Textual Zamangube, and Sebastian Magacha, among others. So Baba Harare says people must understand that he wants to be a Christian. He doesn't want those ladies to dance for him anymore. He wants to be a Christian. So get used to it, guys. Baba Harare is a Christian, and don't force him to become Muhete. So I think we've got most of the stories covered here. Let me see if there's anything else from South Africa. South Africa is very interesting. It's got stories every single day. There's a story on a single day. There's no day that passes without a story. I want to give you a story here. This is very interesting, and it's a young boy. So this young boy, let me find out what his name is. So on your screen, there is a young boy here. He is 11-year-old grade 6 learner, Lifaletu Mbasana. He has been given new shoes by Gerald Nomlala, who is a founder of an NGO here in South Africa, after he walked 35 kilometers from his school in Simonstown to his home in Khayelitsha last week, after the bus did not allow him to board. So the bus driver refused to let him come into the bus. You can see his two young siblings there. They were allowed to go into the bus, but he was not allowed to go into the bus. And he had to walk 35 kilometers, find his own way home. And a lot of people are very concerned about the bus driver. And they also feel sorry that the young boy had to walk at night for such a long distance to go home. And so a lot of goodwill has been coming to the family, including Mr. Gerard Nomlala. He always given him and his siblings some shoes. So a very interesting story, and you can go and check it out in the Star newspaper of today. So that is where you can find this story. And so let's recap. I want to recap now. I don't want to stay longer here. So this story is very interesting. So the one story that I started with is obviously the Zimbabwe government is trying to make a lot out of the accident in which US Embassy official, let's see his name here, Eric Kimpton. He was involved in an accident in which a young girl, Rawarashi Takamanya, died in Dema. And I don't think it was a hit and run because he was able to give a statement. So I think it was just an accident. And what happened afterwards is that the United States Embassy has invoked diplomatic immunity, and Kimpton has left Zimbabwe. And this was on 3 June. He left around 4 or 5 June. However, the Zimbabwe government is making a lot of this story, and they're now talking about wanting to invoke international law and so forth. But I don't think that is going to work. What I said here is that it's now up to Mr. Eric Kimpton to follow the traditional customs of Zimbabwe just for his own personal well-being. Because what happens normally is when you are involved in such an accident in Zimbabwe, there are certain traditional rituals and traditional customs that you need to follow. Otherwise, there are certain things that happen that you will not understand. These are very common, and I told you about my friend who was involved in an accident in Mozambique. What happened afterwards? There is a lot that can happen, and normally this is something that you cannot explain, or what normal people call paranormal activities. So they will have to have an interaction with the family. They cannot just ignore it and say it's already happened and we've invoked diplomatic immunity. If you do that, watch this space. Within the next few years, you're going to see a lot of things happening and those are to do with the African, what can I say, African beliefs and traditions. So this is more something that you need to address with the family. You cannot walk away from an accident in Zimbabwe and in Africa. Basically, that is what I can say here. Then I want to see if I've missed something else. Let me recap on SADC. SADC is only going to happen within 1 day. As I said before, there's no way for the presidents to sleep. So it's now only going to happen on the 17th. Both the opening and closing ceremony is going to happen on the 17th of August. The presidents of SADC are not going to sleep in Zimbabwe. So that is what is going to happen. There's no way for the president to sleep. And the presidents are now going to go to parliament. They are no longer going to go to the United States of Zimbabwe because the facilities are not ready. So it's a mess. It's a big mess. And then today, the 78 arrested members of the opposition of Zimbabwe are going to appear in court for a second day. And we hope that they'll be released before Friday. My understanding is that the Zimbabwe government is eager to release these guys. They've been advised that there's no case and it's bad for the country for Mnangagwa to keep keeping these people in prison for no reason, without trial. So I think I've covered all the things I wanted to cover here. And it's very sad when I have to read a story like the one that I had to read today. It makes me very, very sad because I don't like it. I don't like to read such stories. I think, let me look if the Chronicle newspaper is published before I go. Chronicle Zimbabwe, have you published? Yes, the Chronicle newspaper of Zimbabwe is published. Let's see what they're saying. They're talking about Mphambela. And then we have a massive story from the Chronicle newspaper. That is what I like about the Chronicle newspaper. They go to the ground. So if you look at any other newspaper, there's no newspaper like the Chronicle, which actually goes on the street. So shops continue to reject the ZiG. The surge in black market exchange rate, peaking as 1:25 ZiG last week, has led to some unscrupulous business people in Zimbabwe, in Bulawayo, defying this directive by Zimbabwe government, who are no longer accepting the RE. Sorry, the ZiG. Okay, the official exchange rate remains at 14, whereas the actual exchange rate on the street is now at 25. But I told you that the exchange rate is going to be at 34. So let me show you the graph. This is the graph. And what this is called higher highs and higher lows. And then the red is the parallel market exchange rate. So what happens is when you do manipulation, you have a straight line, which is called a consolidation. And the first leg is 16 to 19. That is four moves. The next move after this consolidation is going to be times 3. So times 3, 4 times 3 is what? Is 12. So 12 plus 19, that is going to be 31. So the next rate of the ZiG is 31. Then there's going to be a test, a retest of some sort. So it will go around 25 there. And then the next move is going to be times 5. So 12 times 5 is 60. So the next rate of the ZiG is going to be 90. What did I say about parabolic? So when I say parabolically, I mean that the next time you see the ZiG crashing, it's going to crash from 31 to 90. That is where it's going to go. And that is Forex. That's how Forex works. And then it's going to go to 0. By the time you go to December, the ZiG is going to go to 0. And the reason is because of what I call fake ZiG. Fake ZiG is the banks have created fake electronic balances when they transition from the Zimbabwe dollar to the ZiG. They keep it somewhere in their balances. And the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe doesn't know how much they have. And what they'll do is what we call banning, where they'll take out some ZiG and sell it for Forex and then delete the account. That's fraud, pure fraud. And then they're going to go again, take out some ZiG, change it, delete the account. And then eventually, the zig is going to be so weak that they can now release the whole thing. That is parabolic. That is when you're going to see the zig crashing. When the zig goes from 90, the number that you're going to see there cannot be controlled. It's just going to go. And I think there's an economist here who has said the zig has got 6 months before it goes to a number that you cannot understand. That is because of fake zig. And then by the time they try to release the knots, it won't make sense. So Mshavan, Governor John Mshavan, take this thing that I've said and keep it somewhere on your wall. That is 14, then from 14 to 19, from 19 to 31, 31 to 90, then parabolic to zero, zero because of fake zig. So if you've got zig, do what I told you to do in the beginning. When you see a zig, spend it. Do not keep your zig in your pocket. That thing is worthless and is being manipulated daily. It's worth nothing. And the reason is because Mnangagwa is failed to create an atmosphere of peace and dialogue. Mnangagwa Mnangagwa is destroying our country. That is what I've been telling you guys. And you're going to see it in front of your face, in front of your eyes, every single day. It's going to be demonstrated for you. So I would like to end it here. I need to go and do my workout. Today I've got a massive number of meetings, and I'm preparing to arrive in Zimbabwe on the 16th. So I'm going to fly into Zimbabwe on the 16th. I'll be out on the 17th so that I can show you what will be happening during the SADC Summit. So I really appreciate everything that you've done supporting us here at Gambakwe. And let's look at the comments. Mkomagono, the trial of the over 70 resuming today. Yes, Mkomagono, today until Friday, and I expect them to be released. I expect Mnangagwa to withdraw the charges. And then Mkoma Liba, thank you very much. Mkoma Tattoo, thank you very much. And Mkoma Iris says, Asimurume Mkuruku Kumukira Kuveringa, my newspaper here. Power material irrelevant and incompetent. Learn from Chafuta, Mbiri TV, and who is that guy? Mpana Uyu, Soro. Right, guys, let me tell you something. Our country is massive, it's big. They don't have access to news. So I give you news from Zimbabwe, from Africa, and my opinions. There is no one in Zimbabwe with as many opinions as me. I've got so many opinions. If I give you an opinion, even Mnangagwa has to listen to me, because Zandutaura Panapa, Apana Panozvinzwa, Mnangagwa, vanhu vake vezimpapers veSTV vese mayesmen, inini ndinondotaura zvinhu zviripo Mnangagwa. So Sticks is saying another loss or wrong analysis from you, brother. You're saying Sada meeting won't be held in Zimbabwe. Actually, everything you said wish is not happening. So rest, my brother, and do something else. Yes. Let's see what is going to happen on the 17th. I think Mkoma Sticks, you didn't understand what I'm saying. The presidents are going nowhere to sleep. That's why they're there for one day. Then Mkoma Gono says diplomats are exempt from being prosecuted by the state in open court when they're suspected or guilty of a crime. I agree with you. All I can say to you is, if you are involved in an accident, it's your personal responsibility to deal with the case with the family. In Zimbabwe, it's not about the embassy or your company. You have certain traditional activities that you need to perform. If you don't do it, you understand what I'm talking about. So this is not about an organization. It's actually you, the person that is involved in the accident. So if you run over someone, don't think being a diplomat is going to save you. There are certain things that you need to do. And that the first port of call is for you to go and talk to the family and appease the family and make sure that you deal with the situation on a personal level, not at the level of an organization. And then Mkoma Andrea says SADC is setting a bad precedent by ignoring their own SEOM report on Zimbabwe elections. Yes, that's correct. We've said this for a very long time. And what we're watching this week is going to be dramatic. the boycotting of the SADC events is telling you something. And Mnangagwa has to watch and listen. He's being given a loud message. His 1 year of being a chairman of SADC is going to be the most difficult. It's not going to be easy. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And thank you very much for all your support. And I'll be back here in the evening to talk about SADC, what would have happened in SADC. And a good day to you all.